Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about the crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of The Sinner. A great season premiere, obviously kind of jumping right into things with a new case. Apparently, it's been a couple months since season one with the whole Cora situation. So, a lot has kind of changed. It seems, interestingly enough, what they've set this season up to be. It does seem like we are going to get a lot more about Harry, because it actually seems like we're going back to his hometown. That's where this case in particular is taking place, in Keller. Also noticing an interesting thing when you look at his nails, they made a point to point it out, his nails aren't black anymore. So I'm guessing that means the stuff he was up to last season, obviously with the lady he was kind of paying, which she said, which initially is like, oh, you didn't pay me before. She was asking to talk to him. I wonder will that kind of circle back in the story or not. But it seems like, I guess that's kind of like a sign of like, okay, he's doing good. He's kind of like trying to fix himself. Like after, I guess, helping Cora kind of figure things out, maybe it kind of helped him inadvertently kind of figure things out as well about himself. But nevertheless, we're diving into this week's, season's case, where it's basically a young boy named Julian. Him and his family go on a road trip, apparently to Niagara Falls, at least what they said. And initially, he ends up poisoning them. Now, immediately, there were a lot of things that didn't sit right for me about the situation. It's just like, I don't know, like I just, based on what I've seen of this season, like from commercial breaks and stuff like that, but I just kind of got an inkling from the very beginning. Adam and Beth, I think is the wife's name, are not his parents. Just in certain ways they reacted and acted about things. It's kind of like she was so reluctant about like, no, we don't need to be here. We don't want to be at motel because I guess it'd be too quick to catch on what they're up to. And it's like, oh, when they're about to have sex, she's like, oh, you're a bad father. He's like, oh yeah, I'm the worst. And they're laughing and smiling. I'm like, okay, he's not your kid. You most likely kidnapped him or something. Because I'm like, it doesn't make any sense otherwise. I mean, not unless it's a situation of, because later on, obviously skipping around, the lady at the end says that she's his mom. So it might be like a biological and adopted parents type of situation. Like those might be his adopted parents. But part of me just kind of like, nah, they probably had to have kidnapped him or something. Or maybe his mom lost him for whatever legal reasons or whatever. Like, I don't know. It could be because like it almost seemed like she was stepping in as a therapist in like the cutbacks we saw with her and Julian, talking about the whole Shadow Julian thing, which I'll kind of get to later. But all that makes me kind of wonder, it's like, is it a situation of like knew she was his biological mom and just didn't say anything, was kind of there just to help him? Or it's like, like I said, it's the first episode of the season, so we're still kind of walking into this knowing nothing, but everything I'm kind of coming up with, it just seems like guesses, because it's just like, because when she shows up at the end, she seems so detached. It doesn't seem like I mean, I don't know, everyone handles things in their own ways, but it's just like her, I'm his mother. It's just like the way she looked just didn't look like, that's my son, that's my, it just, I don't know. I feel like in that situation, you'd be a little more frantic or something. I don't know. Like the way she's just so calm, cool, and collected makes me think there's definitely extenuating circumstances to this. What exactly, we'll just have to wait and see. But it does seem like there is kind of a darker side to him, because we see it a little bit when Heather talks to him. He kind of starts making those noises. And so I guess it's like he has a darker side. And because we do see like he kind of cuts back to this like shadowy cloak figure like walking almost like down a hallway. And it's like it cuts to that. And I guess like because his quote unquote mom, like I said, her name was Beth. Like she was talking about the fact is that, oh, you're having nightmares again or something like that. So I'm like, I don't know. Because what also cements it more in my head too about them potentially not being his parents is the fact is when they, like the last word that came out of Beth's mouth was like, you. It wasn't like no, like, I mean, it's weird for me to like critique someone dying or something, because it's like, but it just feels like, why would you say you? It's like, it's almost like she was trying to get to him, like to hurt him, rather than being like, why'd you do this to me? Like, you'd assume that would be the first thing out your mouth rather than you, just because of the realization that they did that. It's also incredible too, because like Harry ends up figuring out, because of a rash on his arm, that it turns out like he got a plant and mixed it with the tea. He knew what it would do. It causes a rash if you touch it like a few hours later, but it would kill a person in poison. So he went into this knowing that. So, but it seems like this Shadow Julian thing isn't just something recent. It seems like, I mean, we don't know how long it has been between now and the whole situation with his mom, because he looks relatively about the same age. Well, quote unquote, the lady saying that she's his mom. So, because there is a question, because there's a thing that kind of came up during the trailers and commercials. It's like, yeah, they literally packed no stuff for him. So what was the plan? Like, was it like a last minute snatch and grab? Like, oh yeah, but then why would he go along with it? Why would he just pretend that they are his parents? Like, I mean, maybe, I mean, you can't, I mean, it's hard to say. It's not like you could be like, oh, like, I mean, it's a traumatic experience. Maybe he's just going along with it because it's like, oh, they'll hurt people that are important to him, like potentially his biological mom or him. So he's just kind of going along with whatever delusion that they have. But it's just like things just kind of didn't fit right. Like, especially the mom, she was the most nervous about everything. So I guess that's why they wanted to use cash rather than using Adam's card, or at least because Adam was kind of going to her to pay for like the motel and stuff. But I'm guessing because I can't remember. I assumed he used his card. I think he was using it, but maybe that's probably why, because they didn't want to leave like a paper trail. Like, at least with money, you don't have to worry about it as much. There's no like receipt and stuff like that. Kind of, well, you know, like I said, there's no paper trail. So that's kind of what first comes to my mind. I don't remember if he actually paid with cash or not. If he's going to pay with cash, why did he turn to her? So it must be like she's the only one that has cash on her, but she left her wallet, which, interestingly enough, she doesn't have an ID in the car. Like, even when they tracked down the car and got her purse or whatever, her ID wasn't in it. So it's like, what the hell is up with that? Why does he have his ID on him and you don't? Because that was another thing I was wondering about too. Is like, how would I assumed that this would take place, well, in Dorchester, where like the first case took place, but it seems like it's in a different place, because this isn't even Harry's jurisdiction. He actually gets brought out there by Heather, which I guess she's kind of like a family friend, because like she knows of him. Like, obviously he's pretty tight with her dad. But Keller seems to be his hometown, but it seems like he hasn't been back, the way Heather talks about it, in 15 years since her mom's funeral. And it's kind of interesting too, because Heather kind of puts this spin on it, because she's like, oh yeah, the chief doesn't know that you're here because I called you. He thinks you're here just because you decide you want to be here and you want to help out. I think that's just because, like, obviously she's kind of new at this whole detective thing, and I think the pressure's kind of setting in, and I think she's kind of worried about screwing things up, is what she kind of talks to Harry about. So she wants to make it seem like, oh, she didn't go out of her way calling for help, because she'll probably look weak in front of everybody else. I don't know, because it seems like there's kind of already this like problem, because she even has one with like the dude Brick, because it's like she asks him a question repeatedly, he kind of gets annoyed at her, so and she kind of snaps back at him like, just because I'm asking a question multiple times, so that must mean like maybe, for one, maybe there was something there potentially, or maybe it's just the fact of the matter is she got this higher position and he didn't, so maybe there's some animosity there. You know, I think that's what this is going to be a driving force in her story, might be the fact that she might feel like she doesn't deserve the position, because that's why she's kind of bringing in Harry, because she doesn't think she can handle this on her own. Because we do see her kind of downing like a whole glass of wine, like that guy is like, okay, so she's dealing with something. What exactly? I don't know. It seems like an interesting thing where it's just kind of like her dad brings it up to Harry. It's like, oh, you didn't know she was gay, right? Oh, she came out to me a few years ago. I'm kind of like, oh, I'm like, that just seemed like such a weird thing, just kind of bring up out of nowhere. So I'm like, is that what she's struggling with too? Like, I mean, we don't know the full dynamic of their family. It seemed like her and her dad have a good relationship, but I mean, who knows? Like, you know, even Harry doesn't know, because apparently he hasn't really been in contact with the family in the past like 15 years or whatever. So there's definitely something there. What exactly? What I thought was interesting too is that when Jack was kind of like, oh yeah, it's stuff we did back when we were younger, but Harry's like, oh, I don't remember. He's like, you don't remember? How do you not remember? If you remember correctly, in like season 1, like Harry like was having a conversation with Faye, and it was about like, oh, like basically they had another kid at one point in time. But, it never really got discussed, but it's, from the conversation, it seems like they lost the baby. And it's like, he had said the line of like, oh yeah, like whenever you're ready, we can try again. But he was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that. So it makes me wonder, like, has Harry forgotten a large chunk of his life? I mean, whatever went down in Keller, maybe it's just because, kind of similar to Cora or Julian, maybe it was something traumatic that really kind of set that aside in his mind, that the reason why he doesn't remember what happened with Jack. Or maybe it's just the fact of the matter is there are just big chunks of Harry's life that he just doesn't remember for whatever reason. Maybe something did happen as he got older, or like what? I mean, he might have blocked out a lot. Well, I mean, because that situation is like, well, no, he blocked that out because it was kind of a, associated with a bad thing of like, oh, this is a beautiful moment, but it's taken back. I don't know, but I don't know. Like that line in particular, like we can try again, kind of doesn't seem like it's all bad. So I don't know. Like, obviously season 1 showed that Harry's got his own demons that he's trying to wrestle with. Kind of taking the punishment he does, kind of like being dominated and just kind of like being put in pain just because I guess he feels like on some level he deserves it. Because I can only assume from what it's showing, like, you know, the lady on the bed, the fire, the boiling water. I'm assuming that had to do with his childhood because he's like, oh, catching fireflies, and he goes in and it cuts to that same lady. So I'm assuming that's his mom, and his mom might have been sick and did something to him, because he said an interesting thing to Cora last season. He's like, we shouldn't blame ourselves for what people did to us when we were younger. So obviously some stuff happened, and I'm thinking that's going to be something we delve a lot more into, because I feel like we only got little bits of Harry last season. I feel like this season, probably dealing with the whole Julian situation, might kind of force him to kind of confront his own past to an even larger extent this season. Maybe potentially, I don't know what exactly went down in Keller for him all those years ago. We see him kind of pull up in front of a house. So the question is his mom still alive and living there? Because that's something that doesn't really come up. So because the fact is, he thought about at that house, like, is it the same house? Was it burned down and rebuilt? Did someone else live there now? But it's just kind of going past her and remembering what was once there, you know? That's immediately where my mind kind of jumps to with this whole situation. But there's also other elements to this case that are interesting too, because after poisoning them, what does he do? For one, he moves Adam's body, and it seems like he kind of cleans things up. He puts rocks on their eyes. I'm wondering, is that supposed to be a substitute for like pennies? Because it's like, oh, you put coins on someone's eyes so that when they go to the, like, you know, ferry to the next life or the underworld, whatever the case may be, like to pay the ferry toll to go to the afterlife. So I wonder, is that supposed to be a substitute because he didn't have any money on him, or is it just rocks? Is that representation of something else? He even cleaned up Beth's mouth a little bit from like when she threw up from the poisoning, you know? So, but what he did was he ran away. He took off his shoes. He was leaning against a tree, I guess, because whatever it was scared him so much. Maybe because it is kind of the Shadow Julian and the Julian thing. Maybe when he kind of snapped. I mean, it seemed like it was Julian that was kind of in control, but maybe Shadow Julian took over and moved the bodies. But when he came to, like, he had peed on himself. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe he was terrified at what he had done, just couldn't believe what he did, or it's really hard to say at this point in time, because it does seem like there might be because of that. It does seem like there is some religious angle to this season as well, considering, I mean, I think they probably play with that a little bit too, because the show is, you know, the center and everything. You know, that aspect probably translates over into this. I mean, hell, that might even translate over into Harry's life a little bit, like what his story might be, may or may not be. We'll see. But ultimately, what is interesting too is the fact is that he talks about them dying was so they could get back to the beginning. So was this like some kind of like restarting their life? Like, you know, what does that mean exactly? Like, does that mean some kind of form of like reincarnation of like, oh, they start back from the beginning? Like, he's kind of setting them free from like whatever corrupt, mess up stuff they were doing now and giving them another chance at another life. Is that what he's potentially saying? I don't know. Like I said, we are in the very early stages of the season, so it's like a lot to kind of unpackage as the season progresses through. But like I said, it's not just about figuring out the case. It's also about Harry, like why he's been gone so long. Why this is enough to drive him back home too. Like, he could have said no, but is it because it was Heather asking, or is it just because of the case itself? Like I said, you know, does it make him think of his own past? You know, does anyone else know about his past? Like Jack, I mean, it hasn't come up, but with, you know, it's like, is it something he dealt with that no one knows about? You know, because I don't know, I guess because it was so long ago, maybe most people don't feel right bring it up. Like, especially Jack, because he's like, oh, we're friends and stuff like that. Because he's even offering to pay for the food that they're at, like, having. And Jack kept being like, no, we're friends. You don't have to pay. He's like, no, I'll pay. And it's just kind of like Harry being awkward about it. I mean, to be fair, we kind of already know he has a weird time talking to people and stuff like that, you know? So, as he kind of said last season, we don't always start at the same point. So I think that even more implies about stuff where it's like stuff definitely happened to him. So I'm very interested to see, you know, what this whole season ends up being about and what this whole story unfolds into. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.